Hello, and welcome to the coolest set of microtransactions you will ever see. Forgive the huskiness in my voice, I'm a little ill. Today I'll be showing off my fabled cursor. She's gone through a few iterations and has reached a point I'm really happy with. For the next few minutes, I will monologue whimsically on what brought me to the build you're about to see. If I irritate you and you just want to see cool cursing action, click my first ever annotation now to skip ahead. I've always loved wanders. They wander into parties and act like superstars, dishing out ballin' auras, culling everything on screen, and sometimes conduiting a bunch of awesome charges. I've played a wander each league too, in some flavour or another, and the more I play them, the more I realise I like being around them more than actually being them. I assumed other people felt similarly, so I wondered if there was a distillation of a wander that can more cheaply achieve the same welcome in parties. The obvious choice is an aura bot. Take nodes, buy Solaris Lorica, stand 10 feet behind the party at all times, and hope to hell Val disciplines up when you need it. Didn't seem like my cuppa. I prefer to take a more active role in parties. So, cursor then. Shortly after my first died, Senocide Genius made a full support cursor with Lay Cast and Dying Breath, and from what I understand, enjoyed fairly appreciable success. Again, this didn't fit into my fun hole how I wanted. Self-casting curses is expensive and boring, and surely, I thought, there has to be a better way to curse. Enter Curse on Hit. Curse on Hit received a nerf in 1.3, moving its curse efficacy bonus to quality. There was also some sort of duration nerfing effect, but I've yet to figure out how that would ever be a problem. Whatever. At 20% quality, Curse on Hit will apply curses 10% better than casting them yourself will. Dying Breath gives a more respectable 18%, but requires you to be nearby, which, given the passive tree I'm running, is worrying. With this in mind, I don't have to restrict myself to staves. So there was a choice. Quite a wide choice, in fact. For spells, there were Cold Snap to curse at a distance, Ice Nova to curse a whole bunch, and Ball Lightning for both. The first two are easy to turn down, but Ball Lightning seemed very tempting, until I tried it out. Turns out in a full party, everyone kills everything before a curse lands. For attacks, we had a bit more choice. Spectral Throw had the same problems as Ball Lightning, and wasn't useful on the backswing. Ground Slam was too up close, just like Cleave, Reave, and all other melee skills, so the time I spent moving to the pack ended up with it dead. Ranged skills tend to move a lot faster than everyone but Gooder though, so I looked to wands and bows. Kinetic Blast was very promising, but tended only to curse half a pack, attacked slowly, and worked much better with the support gem. My first successful iteration ended up being Split Arrow with Chain. I ran this as my first build in the league, so I bought a cheap 5-link chest and used dual curses. Shortly after, a Tabula Rasa dropped, and a guildmate gave me a Doidra's Damning, so I moved up to 3. With a Quill Rain, Split Arrow, and Chain, my curse coverage was incredible, and with the projectile speed bonus on Quill Rain, I was very agile with the new at the time Blink Arrow. That character made it to level 82, and died while typing to Devourers. Literally typing to them. They'd made several attempts on my life in that map, so I was trash-talking them in local, and they had the last laugh. As with any build, I make it differently when it dies, so I hunted for ways to quad curse. The first thing that came to mind was Infractem. With Infractem, I could drop Chain and still curse a whole pack. I bought a cheap +1 curse necklace and went from there. This setup is very viable. It was slower and clunkier than Quill Rain, and interestingly had problems with Reflect, but it certainly quad cursed. I tired of the clunky gameplay though, and sought new options. I wanted Quill Rain back, but I still wanted 4 curses. Piercing arrow quivers only give a 10% chance to pierce, which can't be relied on, so the skill choice ended up being Ice Shot versus Tornado Shot versus Rain of Arrows. Tornado Shot, as it turns out, isn't the best bow skill in game for everything. Shocking. With a +1 arrow quiver it might do okay, but Ice Shot would be even better, and Ice Shot is pretty fantastic with only 1 arrow. I never did test Rain of Arrows. Ice Shot was too good, although I feel like not being able to curse off-screen would be a downside. Throughout all of this, I noticed there was a lot of space in gems and in the passive tree. With a 6-link devoted to curses, doing anything but going full support seemed ridiculous, so it was a choice between defensives and auras. It was an easy choice to make. I want to be a superstar. If I have badass auras, people will enjoy having me around more. It's also a little better psychologically, because people love seeing their tooltip go up. There's also a hidden benefit of being a life build. I don't need to run discipline for myself, so every aura can be on generosity. With every aura node in the game, I didn't see a reason to not run some Val auras. As it stands, I only run Val Haste, but I'm considering linking my bow and running more. Finally, with about 4 or 5 links spare, we can free screens and conduit charges. All in all, the character is useful in almost any party. If you skipped ahead to here, welcome, you just saved yourself what ended up being quite a lot of time. If you're just waking up from my insanely cool story, welcome back. Let's talk gear. This was my first character in the league, so you can kind of run it with poor gear. Dual cursing only requires a 5-link and a quill ring. To scale up to where I am, you need slightly better. So, let's begin. Of ultimate prominence, tabula rasa. The only chest piece which can beat this is a 6-link with ridiculous colours. Green-blue, then either 4 whites, or 3 whites and a blue, or 2 whites and green-blue. And high life. Maybe mitigation too, like armour or evasion. I'm not sure a chest like that exists. If you could somehow get those colours on Belly of the Beast, then you're a god. The reason you need the white sockets is because these are the curses you'll be using. Notice they're pretty spread out colour-wise. Unless you have one party you'll always be playing with, you'll be switching these curses around pretty fluidly. Temporal Chains and Enfeeble will be regular members of the Dank squad, and Elemental Weakness doesn't generally find itself useless, but a Tabula makes your life easier. Of penultimate prominence, Alpha's Howl. It's a pretty fantastic item. Makes it easier to run your auras, gives +2 to haste and in my usual case Wrath or Purity of Lightning, and Generosity. It also has a resistance and a bunch of evasion. You know what Alpha's Howl is. Next up, Doidra's Damning. We're a cursor. Enough said. Quill Rain is pretty important, as discussed, but for those of you who skipped ahead, Infractum does just fine here if you switch Ice Shot for Split Arrow. For the boots and amulet, you might think I've made a weird decision, with the +1 on the amulet instead of the much more accessible windscreen. This has actually been more of a stroke of fate than planning. The amulet, which isn't all that amazing, was very cheap, whereas windscreen were up to about an exalt at the time. If you find yourself in a similar situation, worry not, as there's a hidden bonus. Boots with life are cheaper than amulets with life, and you can get 10% more move speed with a rare pair. There is the option of a second Doidra's Damning, but the ring slot is very valuable for resists. A rare 2-stone can easily top 100% total resists, and still not cost much. Another thing you can do with a spare ring slot is get a sweet Elrion ring. They go up to -8, which drops Ice Shot down to 2 mana, making it eternally spammable. If you get a -8 2-stone from Elrion, you can augment Regal and Mastercraft it for 2 resists and life, and be pretty much set for the rest of the game. You can also buy a similar ring from XYZ for under an exalt. Everything else is filling resist holes and packing out life. If possible, try to get max life on everything, and take care of your resists mostly not on your quiver. This will let you buy cheap quivers, Val them, and not dump too much money on not having to Val GG gear for +1 arrows. Arguably most importantly, flasks. You'll have very little health in this build. Most would consider it unviable in hardcore, but I don't. If I've died with it, which I have, once, it's because I didn't potion well enough. Here, I have 3 of the best seething potions you can have in-game, and I'm considering dropping the mana flask for either a granite or another seething divine. 20% quality is mandatory. Seething is mandatory. Something most build guides won't go into is the second set. Unless you're in a dedicated party, you'll be swapping gems between colours quite often, and you'll still want to level those gems up. Most builds put gems like that in the slots on the second weapon set, and that's that. But if you're in a group with Elemental Wonders and they want to do a reflect map, you'll want to swap Elemental Weakness for Warlord's Mark. If you only have blue sockets on your second set, where else could the gem go? This isn't a build which has free slots either. Every gem slot will be filled, and there'll be some auras and curses you'll have to buy leveled and leave in your stash. So what do? I Val low level 3 sockets. On the cursor that died, I had a blue white dagger, which was really nice, but these sockets are okay for now. This is a quality of life practice. You can get by fine with a bunch of different second sets, but you'll be slower between groups and less flexible in maps, but the cost of getting white sockets on low level gear is balked at by some people. So, what of gems? Well, here it gets messy. Not that it wasn't already. Several gems can be completely standalone: Enduring Cry, Frenzy, and Blink Arrow. You'll need a 2-link for Val Haste, which can be linked to increased duration, and a 3-link for Cold Snap, Ellie Prolif, Added Cold. Here, my Added Cold isn't qualitied, making it useless, but it's in there, so I won't forget. If your gems are underleveled, like mine are because I only socketed my Quill Rain recently, you won't freeze much at all, if ever, but rest assured when they're on level and high quality, you'll freeze everything you choose to. For your auras, you'll want 2 4-links. Both have reduced mana and generosity, and the rest of the colours are definitely up to you. Personally, I found that blue, green, green, red works very well, with blue-green going in alphas for haste and either purity, purity of light, wrath, or discipline, and green-red elsewhere for hatred and anger when possible, for a full damage trifecta, and other purities other times. Flexibility in auras is important, but not as important as curses, so don't worry about varling alphas for white sockets. Remember that both of your auras and generosity will get +2 from being in alphas, so choose your alphas colours first based on your regulars. At this point, it bears mentioning that this build scales on money. You can run it on a white 5 link and nothing else special, or you can spend mega bucks. Where you draw the line is your choice. Personally, I won't be going for white sockets for auras, or a non-tubular chest, but I have spent a lot of money on gems. Curses get extremely dank with quality, so it's highly recommendable to get at least 16% gems while leveling, or 20 to 1 them with a different character. Curse on hit can be used without quality, but the whole point of using the gem is for its quality bonus, so do yourself a favour. I didn't get a quality Poacher's Mark, Assassin's Mark, Frostbite, Conductivity or Flammability. I made the decision based on how much money I had at the time, and also the fact that I had a level 19.5 Assassin's Mark donated to me by a party member who was with the cursor who ripped. I don't really see a situation where spending money on a quality Conductivity would be worth it, but if you have loads of money, go for it. Some of you watching on YouTube at this point might notice that I'm level 72 and have a very, very small life pool. This is definitely something you need to be wary of while playing. In Devourer or Drop Bear maps, you need to know to let your party go ahead of you, and to always be ready on your blink arrow. If you're taking damage, you should potion hard. It costs a map portal if you're out of potions with no safe way to recover them. It costs hours of your life to re-level. The build gets very little life regen, and every potion you have should be seething, so don't be afraid to quaff a charge when you're not on full life. Make sure you're drinking evenly though. If you're always drinking one flask to top up, that flask will be empty when you take burst damage, and you're going to die because while you spammed the other 2 potions just fine, spamming that one didn't help. If your screen freezes or your FPS drops, drink a charge or 2 in quick succession. If you're being charged at, run backwards and fix your eyes to your health globe. If Living Blood or Spawn of Abaxoth turns up, curse from off screen and ask your party to call out when it's dead. If a map seems too spooky, leave. If party members are endangering you by perhaps running ahead or not clearing behind them properly, leave. If someone is overwriting your curses, leave. You're the superstar, you get to choose what goes down. While you are the superstar though, you're not irreplaceable, and people can map just fine without you. Don't be cruel to people, don't trash talk in local too much, always ask people to add you if they enjoyed playing with you. Set your friend status to available to curse in maps today or similar. One final thing before we reveal the abomination of the passive tree is curse and aura choices. My regular are haste for auras and temporal chains enfeeble for curses. You might choose differently, which is fine, but you'll need to make the choice for the right reasons, or a better cursor might swoop in and take your territory. If I'm in a 2-man party, I need to double the party members' damage to make my being there worth it. I don't have any damage myself, and there isn't anything nebulous like Magic Find coming into play, so it's as simple as that. If I was on dual curse with no alphas, both curses would likely have to be offensive, Elemental Weakness and Assassin's Mark for instance. In a 4-man party, I only need to increase each member's damage by 1/3, so it's pretty likely I'd be able to drop an offensive curse and aura for defensive ones. When I started out, I ran 2 offensive auras and 2 defensive curses, because the auras affected my whole party but not me. As I moved up in the food chain, I had done more curses and kept the offensive auras. At the time, my rationale was, people who need auras for their build, like Clarity, or their defences, like Grace, will run them themselves. This still holds true, but for the wrong reasons. I only accidentally made the right choice. Speaking of Clarity, mana is tight on this build. You won't be able to freeze every pack, keep full charges on everyone, curse everything, and run 4 60% auras without someone running a pretty nice Clarity for you. Generally, there is someone around with said nice Clarity, and that, coupled with people running their own defensive auras, is why Inner Force shows up in the passive tree. As a general guide, if nobody has Clarity, you can curse and free strongboxes and dangerous packs. If someone has a poor Clarity, you can do that and keep endurance charges on the party. If someone has a good Clarity, you can do that and freeze every pack. And finally, if someone has a really good Clarity, you can keep frenzy charges on the party. Using Val auras is something I haven't gotten used to yet. I feel like I should Val haste every time it's up, or rotate with whichever SRS character is about at the time, but Val Grace and Val Discipline will probably be different. That's roughly the entire style of play. some sort of roundabout feedback loop of cool stuff, zipping through maps at high speeds and getting Mjolnir drops. Finally, the passive tree. Leveling this build is a little tricky, but not as tricky as one might expect. Leaving the Scion out of resists makes the entirety of normal a complete breeze for gearing, so you can focus on actually leveling. The first time I did this, I was the cursor for a group, so I was able to actually level as a cursor. The next few times were different, so I took the aura nodes first, along with inner force. This takes you to a passable amount of life, and with a fast foil and prism weave you can level to 55 or so pretty easily with spectral throw. Cruel piety and Dominostrals may pose a bit of a problem, so try tagging along with a public party or buying a kill. As soon as you hit level 55, you want to be in Merciless Docks, cursing for a public party. Either plan for this to happen, or respec out of some aura stuff and inner force to pick up all the curse goodies. As it stands, my tree is complete apart from inner force, leadership, these 2 mana reservation nodes, and all of the skill effect duration. This particular character previously had Infractum instead of Quill Rain, so berserking was pretty necessary. Now I've switched, I'll respec when I get the regrets. A 109 point tree will be linked in the video description for your perusal.